Victis story. The missile launched by the Ultimus crew in 2025 left the Earth as a post-apocalyptic, crumbling wasteland littered with undead hordes as civilization collapsed. As survivors began to band together to form small human communities and shelters to protect themselves from the now global undead threat, Maxis realized the failure of his original plans due to hasty calculations and began contacting survivors to help him with his Plan B. Activate global polarization devices and open a gateway to Agartha, where he would overpower Richtofen and use its energy to heal the Earth. Unbeknownst to his followers, Maxis secretly planned to commandeer the Ether's energy for his own use to open the gateway to Agartha and reunite with Samantha, which would ultimately destroy the Earth and its people. Ultimus Richtofen, unsatisfied with his limited power over the undead, planned to activate these polarization devices as well, which would grant him further manipulation of both zombies and humans, and mend the rift, a direct gateway to Agartha, which would eternally damn the soul of Samantha Maxis in the process. Limited to communication with only those capable of hearing the voices of the ether, Ultimus Richtofen began his own quest for unlimited power. Over the years, Maxis's followers started constructing the first polarization device near the Hanford site in Green Run, Washington State. However, his followers began to doubt his goals and, believing him to be evil, proceeded to destroy the devices. Meanwhile, the Flesh, a society of survivors who ate the undead, was formed. As its members ate the flesh of the undead, they began to hear Ultimus Richtofen, who tried to persuade them to construct the polarization devices. Eventually, a battle broke out between Maxis's followers and the Flesh, with only a few left to escape as an undead horde descended upon them. Several years later, in 2035, Marlton Johnson, the sole survivor of the nuclear incident at Camp Edward and the missile strike, met with Abigail Misty Brierton in a diner near Green Run, where they also encountered two more survivors, Russman, a former Broken Arrow operative, and Samuel J. Stollinger, one of the remaining members of the Flesh, who used a stolen bus for transport. The four would become known as Victis, activating the polarization devices. At the Hanford site, Victis was contacted by Maxis, who revealed the town contains a polarization device required for his plans. At the same time, Ultimus Richtofen contacted Samuel, instructing him to foil Maxis's plans by activating the tower in his favor, beginning a race for power between Maxis and Ultimus Richtofen. Victis ultimately activated the tower for Maxis, consuming the essence of the entity called Avogadro. Victis was then teleported by Ultimus Richtofen to a skyscraper in the crumbled city of Shanghai, Province 22, China, in an attempt to gain control of the tower located there. Maxis also contacted Victis, hoping to convince them to give him control of the tower. Richtofen tried to blackmail Samuel into cooperating by threatening to reveal to his allies that he had consumed undead meat. Every time the group failed to carry out the objective and was killed by the zombie horde, Richtofen would use his power to bring them back, with no memories of their previous failures or deaths. Victis ultimately activated the second polarization device in Maxis's favor. Victis managed to escape the building they were trapped in and started to wander the world to reach the rift, hoping to find answers about the unseen forces commanding them. They traveled through the remains of Europe, crossed the Sahara Desert, and by December 31st, 2035, found a western town buried underground near the rift in southern Angola. The town was transported from the 1800s to underneath the mining facility by a temporal rift triggered by the fracturing of the earth 10 years earlier. In one of the cells, Victis found Arthur, who had been transported to the town from 1318 by a previous temporal rift. Maxis once again contacted the survivors, imploring them to activate the last spire in his favor. Meanwhile, Samuel was tasked with the same objective by Ultimus Richtofen, as it was also the last tower he needed to mend the rift and gain unlimited power. There's two endings in total, canon and alternate. Let's begin with canon. Canon ending. If the player decides to follow Maxis's Easter eggs in all three maps and polarize the towers in his favor, Maxis will gain control of the ether and open a gateway to Agartha. He removes Samantha's soul from Richtofen's body back in 2025, and as a last revenge against his former assistant, Maxis traps Ultimus Richtofen's soul inside a zombie whose eyes become blue, becoming undead Richtofen. He then travels to the house and reunites with his daughter, Samantha. However, opening the portal to Agartha results in the destruction of the Earth and its inhabitants. Samantha, after witnessing her father's corruption by the Dark Ether, reached out through a temporal rift to the Maxis of Dimension 63 for help. Alternate ending. If the player decides to follow Richthofen's Easter eggs in all 3 maps and polarize the towers in his favor, the rift will be mended, eternally damning Samantha to Agartha and allowing Richthofen to fully manipulate the Ether's energies. With the Earth as his personal playground and Maxis' existence erased, Richthofen is now able to leave the Ether at will and uses the body of Samuel Stillinger as his physical host.